fame. If you win it, comes and goes in a minute. Where's the real stuff in life to cling to? Long.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Boomer Pod podcast, where we interview entertainment celebrities. Our guest today is stunt coordinator, performer, and actress, Jennifer Badger. Welcome, Jennifer, and thank you for being with us today on the Boomer Pod.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about your career. When did you get interested?
Well, I found out about the acting when I was 13. I was living in Florida, and Nickelodeon Studios was always looking for kid actors. So I had very supportive parents that allowed me the opportunity to audition, and Nickelodeon picked me up for several pilots and just small roles on shows that were already in development. And then PBS actually gave me some acting opportunities as well to host series and pilots that they had going on. So I started more on the acting end, but I had come through gymnastics and competitive swim and diving. So once I found out about stunts, it was kind of all over. That was where I wanted to focus.
What is action design and pre-visualization, and how did that one come to you?
Well, action design is a kind of another way of saying stunt coordinating, but an action designer often works as a second unit director as well. So it's kind of a step up in how we put the shots together. And previs is a way for us to, in development of stunts, to choreograph, to film, and even to do rough edits to support the directors and help the directors kind of frame their vision of how they want to film a stunt action scene. So if you're talking about like the reels that I have online, you'll notice that in the action designer reel, I have inset boxes showing the action in the previs and then the main action that was shown in the edit. And often they match beat for beat because a lot of times the directors allow us to collaborate with them on how to best capture the shots that they want to see and tell the story.
Let's talk about your film and the respective challenges that you faced in, such as Ozark.
Ozark, I was performing on, and it was I've done some driving for them too, but one of the more fun sequences was an underwater scene. We filmed at a tank in northern Atlanta that's about 14 feet deep, maybe. They had designed the bottom of it to look like the lake, and it was a drowning scene where the daughter appears to drown and then she comes back to life. So for instance, being a family person and a mom, I like to come home and give my son something interesting that I did during the day just to pique his curiosity sometimes. So that day I came home, he asked what I did during the day. I told him underwater pinky acting, because so much of the shot during the day was a close-up on my hand as my hand starts coming back to life for their shot of, oh, the daughter's not dead and she's going to come back up out of the lake. So it was fun.
And you were the stunt coordinator on that as well?
No, sir. I was coordinating for myself, you could say, but I was just on a separate unit. So I was more performing and keeping myself safe.
Okay. And how about the precious blood of Jesus? That was an episode that you were a stunt performer in, right?
I would have been driving then.
And how did you like that?
I mean, I enjoy working with the different stunt coordinators and stunt performers any opportunity that I have. And if it's the driving day that I'm thinking of, I got to work with 2 stunt performers and have some really great conversations about safety issues. So it's more to me about the behind the scenes interactions. A lot of the times, shame on me, but I don't watch the finished product. Sometimes because editorially, I know I won't like what they do with it. And other times just because I am a family person and I do work full time. So trying to go back and watch different things I've been in, I often don't have time to.
Let's move on to Pitch Perfect 3.
Oh, that was a fun one. Pitch Perfect, the action singing movie.
And how did you work that?
I worked with Trish, the director, who gave me a lot of creative license in the scenes. We had a bunch of fight scenes. Rebel Wilson had to do a bunch of fights, and she had stunt doubles for everything, but she is phenomenally talented. So in addition to the dance numbers she was doing, she was coming and rehearsing with me in my department. So we had a whole different fight area set up so that she could come in, be worked into the scenes, get to know the choreography. And then though her stunt double did do takes as well for wider shots, and she did the scorpion kick because that was something that was a little bit more beyond Rebel's skill level. Rebel did a lot of it. We also had her on wires. We had Anna Camp on wires. We had a lot of fun with our team.
Now, here's an interesting one. The First Lady in 2022. How did that differ for you from what you had been accustomed to doing?
Two ways. First of all, it was one of the shows coming back in after COVID, and it was an extremely locked down show. So when they started with us filming, we had to be tested 5 days a week. And on the weekend, they sent people to my house to try and test me on Saturday and Sunday. Luckily, they allowed us to opt out of that after we were in it for a little bit. So it was very unique as far as trying to navigate the ins and outs of constantly changing protocols for COVID. But also that was an interesting show because it wasn't that it was stunt heavy. We did have some stunts. We had a Kiefer Sutherland stunt double, and I doubles probably for several of the main characters. But more interesting was the studio, because of the different eras of history that we were doing. Anytime we had a vehicle moving, I had to have a stunt person there for that vehicle, if it had anything to do with driving at all. So it was probably the most stunt-filled, least stunt show that I have done. A lot of stunt people were very happy and thankful for the work, but it just wasn't action heavy.
And what were your feelings about the ladies that performed as the First Lady?
Everybody was lovely to me. The amount of makeup and hair and costume and production design that went into it was truly incredible. I had a whole lot of respect for it. And the actresses were lovely. Everybody was lovely on it as far as the actors.
Let's move on to Sweet Magnolias.
Okay.
Netflix.
You sure are picking a lot of non-action shows. Although very nice people. We're doing season 4 of Sweet Magnolias right now, so I can't tell you. It's actually been so far one of the more action-oriented seasons, but under NDA, I can't tell you anything about it. I can tell you past seasons, I had a lot of fun because they don't have a whole lot of action. So when I come in, it's fun to watch their reactions. So for instance, in season 2, one of the characters gets shoved down and he breaks his arm. So I did a little bit of previs for that, and I had a contortionist fall and break his arm backwards in a contortion, which just grossed them out and terrified them, but they loved it. So it was a fun impression to have on the producing team.
Let's talk about your action skills. Water work. You were a former competitive swimmer and diver, Junior Olympics gold medal winner, scuba certified, and you dove as part of Jean-Michel Cousteau's team off Mexico in 1994.
And talk about opportunities the Lord has given me that I just could not have come around to otherwise. That came out of, that specific job came out of having hosted a soccer series for PBS in Florida when I was, I think, 15, 16. And then I had started doing stunts when I was 16. And like started working doing stunts when I was 16. I had some amazing opportunities, but I got scuba certified when I was 17, and my dad had been a surfer growing up, so I had always been in the water even before I was competing. And so scuba was kind of a natural progression for me. But then PBS had this opportunity come up called the Adventure Team Journeys with Jean-Michel Cousteau. They also had Ramon Bravo, who was a photographer for National Geographic. And they wanted to have a team of people in the Yucatan Peninsula to help host the show, but they wanted someone representing young people. They were trying to develop as well-rounded an audience as they could. So for that opportunity at 17 years old, I was able to go to Mexico. I was able to work and free dive and scuba dive with Jean-Michel Cousteau and his team. Got to go in the cenotes, got to see a bunch of the jungle areas outside of where normal tourists would go. And it probably the best to me just to hear some of Jean-Michel Cousteau's stories. It was an amazing opportunity. And one of the ways that I look back and just think about how not just great opportunities I've had, but the ways that I've been protected during it, because now as an adult and as a mother, I look back and go, at 16, I moved out of state. But at 17, I was living on my own out of state. At 18, I was moving to California where I didn't know anyone to pursue these goals and was very naive, very sweet, but very naive. And just all the different ways within the industry where there are plenty of good people, but there are certainly a lot of bad situations that abound as well. And I feel like as I look back, there's been many ways that God has just protected me as well as given opportunities. So that was one of them. 17 years old in Mexico by myself. Everyone was wonderful to me.
Let's move into more action. Sword work, 2012. World Stunt Award nominee for sword work in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, I love sword work.
Who did you fight?
Well, I fought with everybody. I fought Johnny Depp a lot, his stunt doubles. I fought with Jeffrey Rush, who I have tremendous respect for as a professional, coming in and learning an 80-beat fight, even though he knew that his coverage would only require him to learn small parts. He's just such a professional. Ian McShane, Penelope Cruz, of course, was who I was stunt doubling. So that was 10 months of working with just an incredibly wonderful and skilled team. And it was a really unique opportunity because I had been called for the first Pirates of the Caribbean, which would have been doubling Kira when they called me to work when I had just 5 days prior found out I was pregnant with our son. And it was disappointing for about 30 seconds as I thought, oh man, a Pirates movie with a woman. We didn't even know what it was going to be at that point, of course, or how fun Johnny Depp would make it or anything else as far as the character. But we were so grateful to be starting our family that it wasn't long before my disappointment was gone. But they were kind enough when they started Pirates of the Caribbean 4 and had a new actress in to call me back for that opportunity, which was really neat because my son turned 8 while we were filming in Hawaii. And of course, what 8-year-old boy doesn't love pirates and want to be around that?
And working with Johnny Depp?
Awesome. Amazing. I'm very glad that he was vindicated in his court case because again, you never know anyone inside of their own relationships, of course, but 10 months of working around him, I did not see the type of character that he was being accused of. In fact, I have one of my favorite shots is getting to do the dancing scene.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, or sword fighting him as Johnny Depp because Captain Sparrow in that movie fights Captain Sparrow. So I had the beard and the dreadlocks and everything. It was quite fun.
And how old was Jeffrey Rush in that movie? Do you know?
I have no idea. I have no idea, but certainly old enough to have every excuse to say, no, I'm good. He very much supported his stunt double, who was also the sword choreographer, Thomas DuPont, in doing any and all of it. But he was so professional and meticulous about coming out and training that I admired it. It's great.
Now, how about What Men Want? A boxing scene or scenes for a specialty fight choreography. How did that work?
Yes, that was good. It went well. That was with Taraji, and they wanted to see as much as possible. I did the previs on that, but I also brought in a boxing specialist, a fight specialist for that to work with me to make sure that we could capture the scene as it was written and as the director wanted to see. But our actress was fantastic. She took to the action very easily. So we were able to get everything that they wanted to see.
car work. Tell us about the different aspects of what you do in car work.
Car work is a specialty in itself for sure. A lot of times when we go in, we have vehicles that do not work properly. So you have to have a basic bag and kit that you take with you and have basic mechanic skills. When I say basic, I mean within the realm of what you need to accomplish for stunts. They have mechanics on set, of course, to keep the car running. A lot of people, I think, feel like stunt driving is crazy and out of control, and it's quite the opposite. We're not daredevils. We're very, very meticulously careful about mitigating risk however we can so that we can do crashes and cannons and pipe ramps and do everything as safely as possible, both for the people involved in the stunt and the cast and crew that are around it. So there's a lot more calm planning than there is, Yahoo action, as some people might expect.
Now, which of these stunt areas do you consider the most dangerous to your person?
To my person, probably none of them, because I stunt coordinate too. And my whole goal as a stunt coordinator, I've been coordinating since 2004. I've been in the industry as a union member 31 years this month. So I worked full-time in the industry as a performer for 10 years before I started delving into stunt coordination, with having mentors that would help guide me if there were questions or things that I wanted to have an additional line of safety on, which I think is very important. So as a performer now, I'm pretty capable of looking at something, and if I don't feel like it's set up in the most safe way, being able to kind of have that conversation. But what people wouldn't think is that a lot of the most dangerous stunts are actually the small, easy stunts. People come in both production and stunt performers and coordinators tend to get complacent. Oh, this is just a trip and fall, or this is just this, just that, just a car driving up to a stop, except suddenly there's a problem with the brakes or a tire blows, or this person's doing a slip and fall. But if you're standing there and the action causes you to slip and fall, what's the surface of the ground? Is it slippery? Is it uneven? What shoes are you wearing? Do you have actors standing around you so that if you flail out an arm, you might elbow somebody in the face and break their nose? I mean, it's all these small things that I think people are more complacent about. When we get into the really big stunts, you have the studio safety involved, you have, your own safety team involved, you have insurance questions and oversight. So I think the bigger it gets, sometimes it's actually more safe. And now in the world that we've come into in the last decade, we have so much CGI and so much VFX help. Sometimes that's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse. There's a whole separate conversation now in Hollywood, as I'm sure you know, about AI and how that's going to affect our industry. However, the CGI enhancement has really allowed us to make things so much safer. For instance, on a show, I had to have a guy where an explosive goes off and he flies through the air and slams into, in the picture, in the edit, slams into a tractor, which is all hard metal and sharp edges and everything else. But because of what we're able to do now in post, we were able to pad it and color the padding in such a way as to help in post, so VFX would have the right kind of lighting reflection and such, but to perform it safely and then have them enhance it by putting the tractor in post.
Now, how is AI going to affect your career?
My career and other stunt coordinators, I think that we still have longevity for quite a while, because there's always going to need to be safety oversight on set, whether it's people driving cars hot, whether it's actors throwing slaps at each other or falling down. There's a certain level of just risk mitigation that I think will be there for a long time to come, if not always. So long as they're filming practically, I think that we have job security. Having said that, there's a whole arena of stunt rigging that I feel like is already getting crunched out a little bit. In fact, on the series that I just finished, which is called Hysteria, we had a ton of stunt rigging, a ton of VFX, and already people lost jobs that I saw personally, because now they're able to make some changes with AI assisting VFX in such a way that they don't need the full rig anymore. They're able to manipulate the person in their own space. So I think that stunt riggers may have the first problem with that. We'll see how it affects general performers. I know there's a lot of worry on the performer level about digital doubles and how they can be manipulated, but I'm not sure where the technology is on that yet. I think that the stunt riggers probably are the first ones that will feel that change. I also think it's interesting because the last decade of Marvel films and other superhero style films has really trained audiences to accept a kind of, forgive me, but kind of cartoony look in the action where the physics on the body aren't exactly right. When you see a body thrown through the air, maybe they hit a railing as they fall down, they hit the ground. It doesn't feel exactly right when it's fully VFX, when there's not a human body in there, at least being captured and then put into VFX world. So I don't know that they quite have the digital doubles right yet for completely replacing stunts, but as quickly as AI is evolving, that might change.
Mhm. What do you consider your greatest accomplishments, Jennifer?
Well, I'll tell you what, I won't take the credit for it, but I will say something that I've seen greatly change in my industry, which I am thankful for, is that prior to 2015 or so, there were about 5 female stunt coordinators across the entire United States. Say me and 4 others. There were a lot more in the UK. There were a lot more in Canada. But as a director I worked for said, and I think he put it perfectly, the stunt coordinator position was the most male-dominated position on set. It's just there weren't many women, and it was prior to 2015 much more difficult. I could have, I think you probably saw, I've been blessed to have about 250 credits. I have over 600 episodics. The experience was there and opportunities did happen, but it wasn't happening on a broader sense for other women. And I really have seen a difference in how I'm received and the opportunities that are available since about 2015. Not really sure why that year, because that was prior to the Me Too movement and things like that, but that's really where I saw change here in the Southeast, at least.
Amazing, amazing. How about the most unsettling career or life challenges?
I think for me, because of where my heart is, the most difficult is probably work-life balance. Again, going back to, we have some fantastic female coordinators now across the United States, but out of the stunt coordinating women that have been doing it for significant time and have significant credits, I'm the only one I know of, maybe one other, that is also a mother. Trying to balance that has been a struggle. Because I put my family over my work and my heart and my head, but sometimes the hours, once we've committed to a job, get really long. For instance, I did a show in 2013 and 14 that was, it was a huge action show. Every week we were lighting people on fire. I was ratcheting them on wires across rooms. We had fights going on every week, sometimes with weapons. It was just very, very, very intricate. Because it's TV, it's a constant prep and film at the same time. So it takes a whole lot of work. I was probably 6 days a week and getting very little sleep, and really didn't like the lack of time that I was getting with both my husband and our son. But since our son was younger, I really would have liked to have been around more. In retrospect, now I probably would have turned that job down. As it was, I completed season 1 of that job and then removed myself from that situation. So that balance has been a challenge. I haven't perfected it, but we have always tried to focus on quality time. And thankfully, the industry has taken me all over the world. So my husband and son and I have all traveled together. We've been to all 7 continents, actually, which is a huge blessing. My son's 21 now, so he's kind of going off on his own path. And my husband is in stunts as well. He's a stunt rigger. So he's one of the ones that's starting to feel the crunch of the AI boom. But having a family that understands the industry and can travel together is huge.
If you could, what would you change? Maybe just one thing about your life or your career. What would that be?
I think that if I had the choice, I would work on projects that I am more personally proud of. there are shows that I feel called to work on, and I pray over things, and my family does with me before I go. And I feel like I am purpose to be in certain places, but there are certainly projects I work on that I would not recommend my family or friends to watch. They just based on the material and what's popular right now. I did a show that was a smaller budget a couple of years ago called Camp Hideout. It made a theatrical release, but it wasn't a big budget project by any means. But we filmed it in Tennessee. I had a lot of creative license, so much previs, so much getting to help develop and create the scenes. But it was very Home Alone-esque, just ridiculous, goofy stunts, and we had a blast. The team and I had so much fun, and it was something that, even though it was a kind of a goofy family movie, I was happy and proud to share with family and friends. So I would like to work on more projects like that going forward, but that's not always where I'm led.
Where do you hope to be in 5 years, Jennifer?
That's a great question. I guess on the industry end of it, I wouldn't mind second unit directing more. I love being able to mold things on the creative end. Sometimes we film things and we give the producers and directors what they want, while also gritting our teeth because we know it's not the best way to utilize what we're giving them. In fact, there's a big superhero show that is now in production where their entire stunt team just left. They walked because of creative differences. So there's times when you really work hard for months and months and months and months, and then you see what they edit together and how it's utilized, and it just breaks your heart, makes you not want to watch it. So the more creative input that we can get, either on the previs and designing in, or as second unit directors, the more that we get to help build the story in a way that makes sense with the stunts.
Can you tell us about your heritage and your family?
Sure. I mean, heritage, I'm a mutt. My family's from Ireland and Spain. But as far as my family itself, my parents are fantastic, have always been super supportive. My dad is a retired pastor, and both of my parents are missionaries. They supported me getting in the industry and were always supportive of me being in sports. But as soon as I started having injuries and dangers as a stunt performer, I think my mom regretted encouraging me a little bit. Having said that, they've always been super supportive and very loving and proud and encouraging. And like I said, we are all a family that prays together. My husband, again, understands the industry. He's been in it over 30 years as well. We actually met doing stunts a long time ago. We've been married 24 years. And so having somebody who understands makes a huge difference. Being able to look across the set, make eye contact, and know that we're both thinking the same thing is always fun. Yeah, I just, their support has been everything. I wouldn't want to be alone in this industry. It can be a very ugly industry sometimes. You go to set and, you know, hair and makeup department will have no problem sometimes telling you that how you're not good enough. I've been told I'm too fat fitting in costume before. I've been told my head is too big as far as wearing a wig and how it's going to be, that I have ugly this or ugly that. It's not a kind industry sometimes. So having a home to come home to, and my identity being in my faith and my family, and not having my identity in this industry, I think that's made a huge difference. And I wish some of my peers would find that as well, because I see them brokenhearted sometimes over the whims and the fickleness of this industry and the people in it. It doesn't define us. This is not who we are, it's what we do. So I'm thankful to have been rooted in that.
Good for you. Good for you. Tell us about surfing. Tell us about your father, a pastor who surfs.
Well, he grew up in Cocoa Beach, in Cocoa area. So, I mean, I think it's required there. That's not good surf, but it's surf. So yeah, from my youngest memories, I can remember him paddling me out, you know, riding on the board, and then he'd hang off the back and help stabilize it so I could surf in. And I actually got a few surfing jobs both on the East Coast and a couple out of California while I was living out there. So that was kind of fun legacy. He doesn't surf anymore, but I bet he would if he felt like he could.
I worked in the hotel business for 3 years in Cocoa Beach. So I'm
Did you
very,
really? You're
yes,
familiar.
I'm very
Yes.
familiar with that area, very
Yeah,
familiar.
little sharks
Beautiful.
swimming all around you. Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's very choppy surf. So I felt like when I went to California, surfing was so much easier out there. The surf was so steady.
Now, how often does your schedule and your husband's schedule, work schedule, conflict?
Um, I mean, in past years, it has a lot. In more recent years, he's also kind of deviated. He wanted to take some time and become a master gardener, which he did the 2-year program. So I was very
Wow.
proud of him. I'm eating
Wow.
very well out of his garden. So now we work together a lot when we can. When there's big rigging, there's nobody I'd rather have on my rigging team than someone I've known and worked with for 30 years. And so we have, in fact, one of our other key riggers is somebody who is best man at our wedding. So it's a pretty small, tight group for working together. As our son was growing up, we tried to purpose as much as possible to have conflicting schedules so that one of us could be with our son as much as possible, which was most of the time. It was a priority to us. That definitely meant that we lost some work over time. We had to turn down jobs, but we wanted to prioritize family.
Where is your son headed, career-wise?
My son is headed coming up in the next few weeks to a paid internship in Florida, actually, in Merritt Island at a church where he is seeking to do ministry. He's not sure what area of ministry he wants to be involved in yet, but that's his heart. He has worked with us some. He was scuba certified when he was 10. And he was doing all sorts of adventures with us before that. So he's been hired to do underwater work. He actually won a Screen Actors Guild Award as part of the Stranger Things ensemble because he doubled the character Fred in that last year, which was fun. He's the only one in our family who's gotten to work on that, and he had a blast. So he's dabbled in the industry, but not wanted to do it full time, nor do we really want him to.
You've got a wonderful family, a lot to
I
be
am
thankful
very
for.
thankful. Yes.
A lot to
And
be
I will say
thankful
that one unique opportunity I've had that we didn't touch on, that I think was a neat opportunity based on my experience as a mom, as well as my experience in the industry, was the TV show Raising Dion, which was a superhero show about kids superheroes and villains, and a single mom trying to raise her son while he's going through getting these powers. So we had kid doubles, we had people on wires all the time, we had a lot of exciting stunts and fights and actions, and trying to find the right doubles for that, and also mitigate risks while utilizing child actors in safe ways was a really fun challenge, as well as our lead character who played Dion, his name's Josiah. He was 8 when we started. And I wanted him to know that when he came to work out with stunts to train on the wires or to train with us, that he always had to want to do it. It was never going to be forced on him. It was never going to be an obligation. So I wanted to make it fun. So for instance, the first day he came out, I threw up a green screen and put him on wires just off the ground and had him do some poses so he could feel the harness. But then I took that home and I put all sorts of superhero stuff behind him on the green screen and added comic book action and stuff so that when he saw that, I could show him, look, this is what you'll be doing on set. And it's going to seem really not exciting. But the VFX team, which is so much better than I am at this, is going to make it amazing with all the things that are happening in the final edit. So being able to show him that and kind of draw him in and make sure he felt comfortable always to tell us when he, was needed help, or, sometimes the harnesses get uncomfortable, things like that. That was a really unique and wonderful experience working with him and the rest of the cast there.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What would you like Jennifer Badger to be known for?
My faith. But as a stunt coordinator, when my team comes in, I tell them my goal is to make the action as violent looking as possible. I mean, I like big action. I like seeing explosions and bodies flying and people on fire. I like the action, but I want to make it repeatable and safe so that they can go home to their families and play on the floor with their kids. And that came from my heart because for years I was the person on the wire getting yanked everywhere, which you probably saw in some of the reels. And there were some times I came home and my young son wanted to play and I was just in a lot of pain and or injured and couldn't do that. So that's been my goal as a coordinator. I want to create great action, but I want to do it in a way that's safe for the performers and repeatable as well. For instance, I won't do car hits anymore as a performer, and I don't foresee a time I would do a full car hit, meaning as a stunt coordinator, and actually do a practical car hit, because practical car hits are the #1 traumatic brain injury stunt. And yet they're still being done on some films and television shows. However, instead of hitting somebody with a car at 20+ miles an hour, you can use wires and you can make it look like you're just nailing someone and just killing them and violently spin them through the air and take them down to a really thin mat even where VFX can paint it out. And it's repeatable over and over again if the directors want more coverage. Whereas do a practical car hit, you may get one, you may get two. If you're lucky, you may very well end up in the hospital. I just don't have any interest in coordinating stuff like that. So that's where my team comes in and knows I'm going to do everything I can to make things as safe as possible. I did a stair fall recently where I had to chuck a guy down a very narrow, very long flight of wooden stairs. But we were able to talk during the action design section of prepping into how the edit was going to be used. And it was purposed to be broken up in 2 sections. Guy starts to fall and we see him start to tumble. They're going to cut to an actor's reaction of them falling and then cut back to the rest of the fall. And knowing that, going in and planning for the edit on it, I'm able to pad out the bottom of the stairs. I was able to put a skull protection under a wig on our stunt double just to protect his head from injury. And then we were able to film it in 2 different sections like that so that when they have the edit, they have very, very violent falls. When we shot the bottom section, we took the pads out and he just started a few stairs up and really threw himself into it and was an ugly mess of limbs. But by planning it that way, we can make it very safe. While in the edit, it will look very violent.
What have I missed in this career graze, Jennifer? Anything that you'd like to mention or pitch?
No, not pitch. No, I'm just, like I said, very thankful for the young start that I got. We didn't talk, my first stunt feature was the movie Hackers, doubling Angelina Jolie, because they needed someone that could rollerblade and ride a motorcycle. And I still love, I got to rollerblade through Grand Central Station, which who gets to do that? So that was my first feature. I was 17. And then I moved out to California and everything kind of just rolled from there. Buffy the Vampire Slayer picked up and had me double for a lot of people, and just massive opportunities that when I look at the industry now, I can't fathom would have existed the way they did back then. So I feel very blessed for having started young and been able to have the career that I've had, because 31 years is pretty long in stunts.
Will you join us again in the future to share any updates in your career?
Certainly, as you ask.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today. And be well, Jennifer, and the best to your family.
Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate it. You have a wonderful day there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And you will be happy too.